Son is the Father Man asked a number of questions in a video, and he had posted that video in my comments. These are very common questions that theists have asked, but I think it's worth answering them anyways. So he asked if there's a seed of consciousness inside of you. I wouldn't call it that. I'd just say we have consciousness, and it is an emergent property of the brain. Is it physical or non? It's physical. The electrochemical signals that happen in our brain is what produces consciousness. He said that he finds no way to see it as non-physical. This is a logical fallacy known as an appeal to incredulity, and or it might also be an appeal to ignorance. So just because you can't think of a way to explain it, that doesn't mean that your explanation is the de facto actual explanation. If nobody can explain it, it doesn't mean that your explanation is right either. If we don't know the explanation, it just means we don't know. And say, well, I don't know how else it works, so it must be catapult pancakes. It might give you some satisfaction to feel like you have an answer, but you do not know and cannot know that is the answer. You can believe it's the answer, certainly, but to just say, well, I can't think of a better answer is those logical fallacies. What happens when you die? You're dead. That's it. Sorry to break it to you. There's no reason that I can see to think that anything else happens. When the brain is injured, and there's been many studies on different injuries of brains and different things that have been done to brains. If the brain gets injured, your personality might change. You might lose some or all of your memories, and amnesia patients are basically a whole new person. There's been studies of people where their brain hemispheres are split in half, or they've cut it in half, and there's different reasons why that surgery is done. And one that I can recall, this person had two distinct personalities, and the left side of his brain, you could talk to the left side of him by addressing the right side of his face, and you could talk to the right side of him by addressing the left side, because things are switched around in that way. And the left side of his brain did not believe in God, and so it was an atheist. And the right side of his brain believed in God, and so it was a theist. The right side of the brain, by the way, is generally considered the more creative hemisphere, and the left side is the more analytic hemisphere. So make of that what you will. But does that mean that only half of his brain is going to heaven, or that his soul has been split in twine and only half of it is going to paradise? I don't know. How about the idea that the brain is you, and if it gets hurt, then the you that exists now will be very different when that happens. Just as the you that existed 20 years ago is very different from the you today, the you that would exist if chemical and or physical changes occur to your brain will be very different. So because of all those things, I see that our consciousness is nothing more than an emergent property of the brain that we have. And when that stops working, then we are not anymore. And that's okay to me. I was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so no use complaining, right? The soul and or spirit, he talks about this in the video. And being a skeptic, I see no reason to think that either of these exist. There's no empirical evidence of these things. There's no test to run on them. And so far, I've never been presented with a valid and sound argument, so I'm skeptical of it. Here's the thing. if we had a soul or a spirit that is inside of our body, we should be able to locate it. If this soul and or spirit interacts with the brain in some way, shape, or form, then that means that whatever that is sending out some sort of physical signal that our brain can receive, and we should be able to detect that. So if you can devise a machine that will do that, great, then we have something to talk about. Until then, it's merely speculation at best. He says that this is something that the atheists should contemplate, that is, the existence of a soul or spirit. Who says they don't? Why do you think that we haven't contemplated this? That's rather arrogant of you to presume that atheists haven't thought about these questions and perhaps thought about them for deeply and longer than you as a theist have. Who knows? But it's not meant, and he didn't say it as an insult. It seems that, perhaps this is the person's first encounter with atheists online or what have you, or in general, and he's been living in kind of a bubble before then. I don't know. So this might be a very innocent question, and my irritation at answering it is because I have considered these questions for a long time. My YouTuber name is Deconverted Man. That means I deconverted from something. So yes, I used to believe in these things at one point, so I had considered them for quite some time. The last question he asks is, what's the point of life if you just vanish at the end? And this always depresses me because this is so common. Life matters here and now. It's an absolute gift. And to think that it loses value because it doesn't go on and on and on is just very selfish. It's very self-serving and self-centered. It's I don't want to not be one day. I want to keep going forever and ever and ever. Well, that's why, I guess, but also that look, here's an analogy. If you read a book and you finish the book, does it lose its value because you're done with it? What if somebody wrote a book and the only copy of it burst into flames? Does that mean that it was worthless? Well, no, it mattered. It mattered to the person that wrote it at the very least. And if anyone happened to read it before it burst into flames, it might matter to that person. And, in however many trillion years, the universe will undergo heat, death, and every single particle that exists will cease to be at some point. Oh well. But maybe if we explore science and fund the bleep out of it, we can figure out a way to prevent the universe from ending. Maybe we can extend life indefinitely and make memory perfect so that we can learn everything there is to learn and experience everything there is to experience. And then at that point, I think that we would be bored. If we've done everything there's to do, seen all there is to see, I think that many of us, maybe not all of us, but many of us would say, okay, I'm done now, and want to hit some sort of red button and that just turns us off at that point. Because, well, you've done everything, so that's it. You've seen it all, done it all, had every conversation that's possible to have. You've learned everything that there is to learn. So, what would be the point of continual existence at that point? The other half of that is, if you think that afterlife is so better than the here and now, why are you here? Why are you wasting any time here? What's the purpose of life if it's infinite? why bother with this life at all if the afterlife is so wonderful? Forget about it. Forget about this life. Who cares? Why do anything here and now? You're going to have an infinite paradise. So what's it really matter? So you can look at it in that way. And actually, I would argue, if there's this fantastical paradise that awaits some of us, maybe not all, then what's the point of anyone doing anything? Because you've got all the time in the afterlife plus then some. So just do whatever you want there. And why does doing anything here have any meaning? So that's what I think about that question. Life matters here and now. Even with or without an afterlife, it matters. And maybe we'll find out that there's more. Look, I'm going to live for this life because I know for sure that this is here and now. And we act as if the here and now matters. So I think that does make it matter to us. That would be, you decide what your purpose of life is, and you get to redesign that every single moment of every single day. And it absolutely matters for you and anyone else that you happen to interact with. So those are my answers to his questions. I'll leave his video in the description box below so you can answer his questions. I would encourage you to do so with a video response rather than just text response. But whatever you do is, of course, up to you. Thanks for listening.